Hi, we're live again. This is Melinda for part two of the drama trauma. So, what's going on? Thank you for joining me again. So, I went ahead and talked briefly about what's going on in your body with your hormones and so on as your body gets activated for stress, for trauma, and so on. So, I also mentioned that you could get sucked into somebody else's drama, especially after you've left. So what exactly is trauma? What is that? What does it mean? Now, there is a definition that it's some sort of psychological wound or maybe an injury that causes fear from harm. Maybe there's some threats, or maybe actually there was some harm that happened to you. This could be mentally, it could be physically, it could be emotionally or sexually. So, another definition of trauma is that we are all having individual experiences of an event, of some sort of condition where our ability to integrate our emotional experience, we just get overwhelmed. We get to a point where our body is feeling threatened. It might be our body might feel bodily harm. It could be that we're some sort of threat from a caregiver, from someone we love, but there's some sort of threat that's going on. And again, it's not necessarily that it's a abusive situation. It could be that you were in a car accident, you hit a deer, that now you could be afraid of going by forest preserves or that area again. Maybe you were sexually assaulted when you were going for your train. And so you'll have that area that's causing you trauma from there. Perhaps you have just fallen, and I've fallen on my butt before. So now I'm leery of also bounce houses. I've shared my story of the bounce house incident, which happened and blew out both of my knees, which I still struggle with a lot of issues with that. So I'm very leery and worried about falling. And anytime I do, I could feel my body going through those responses as well. So that's trauma. That's trauma. Maybe you see you lost your child in a store. And many of us parents have done that before. And that is frightening. So we get that elevated response what our body goes through. So there is a difference between trauma and drama, but it's not uncommon to get swept up in it. So that's what this whole thing is about. How do you get swept up in this? It seems to find you everywhere you turn, and what we can do about it. And there's also something called trauma bonding. So I'm going to get back into that in a little bit too. So let's talk about what that looks like. Okay. So when you're going through drama, you're going through some sort of situation that is very negative. It's very depressing. It can be a neutral event entirely, but with your body's going through it, it has that experience where you felt like maybe when you're having a traumatic experience. Okay. So your brain is starting to react that way. You might even, and I mentioned going off of sugar and so on and so on. You're having these incidents where you're coming off of that heightened cortisol and adrenaline and so on in your body. So your coworker shares with you some interesting story that's going on in their life. And pretty soon, next thing you know, you turn around, you're in the middle of the story as well. So how can we kind of break free of that? How can we learn to cope with this drama of breaking free? Trauma is different because our mind and our body get stuck in that traumatic experience. And so we're looking for that. We're so programmed or used to being in that heightened response of cortisol and things that's going on in our brain. We're so used to that we're staying in that. And we kind of look for that next high. And you might not even realize you're doing this. It's all subconscious. We can hold a lot of our trauma, our feelings, and so on in our body. We're locked in that. And it could be for years. There can be unprocessed trauma. People walking around right now that have had it for decades, they don't realize it, or they've just tucked it away in a little box. The experience happened. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to look back at that. They don't want to process it, or maybe they don't realize that they were in that traumatic experience that has shaped their lives going forward. So what can unprocessed stress or that drama, what can all that do to your body? That can cause a lot of issues in your body. You can have insomnia. There's health conditions. You can have nightmares, flashbacks, PTSD sort of symptoms as well. But also what our body can do is when we're storing all that, it manifests as maybe liver issues, kidney issues, chronic urinary tract infections, especially if someone has been molested molested or sexual trauma has happened to them, they might have these experiences. Even many have experienced cancers that have popped up, breast cancer, um, ovarian cancer. We could have different other headaches, migraines, different things like that manifest when we have unprocessed. But even when we have processed, when we have crap that we're still figuring out, that illness and so on gets trapped in our body in different parts and so on. That's another video, which we can do. I can have somebody come on and talk a little bit more about that. There are things that we can do in order to negate a lot of this, and that would be to start processing your drama, your trauma, and starting to let go, find alternative healings as well. But let's dive back into this. So talking about trauma, that can really help. Professional. Always going to let you know, talk to a professional, therapist, counselor, someone you feel safe with, guidance counselor if you're a teenager or a young child. Talk to someone that you trust and that you feel safe with, that you know they're not going to share your laundry with and so on. So there are rescuers though too. So we have, when we have this drama, we have these knights or these heroines that come and sweep us away. They do. And they are also this, something called a drama triangle, which I wasn't planning on getting into, but there are people that come and they are our rescuers. They come and they themselves might have trauma, or a lot of these things you don't even know. Heck, I didn't even know some of this stuff when I started my journey. But there is just this thing that happens to us where sometimes we want to be that heroine or that knight in shining armor for somebody. We want to be helpful, especially if you're empathic. You want to help take someone's pain away, or to, you don't want them to struggle. So you might absorb their anger, their hurt, and so on. You're trying to fix things, and sometimes you just can't fix it. It's out of your control. And even as a survivor, that was one of the things that I had to really try to not step away from, but try to really talk to myself about. I can't save everyone. Okay. I can't save them all from going back to their abuser. And that really hit me hard. Sometimes you come, and I've mentioned this before, sometimes you meet as strangers and you form friends. I can't remember the exact quote, but you leave as friends. So sometimes in the beginning, I had gotten so enmeshed in someone's life. I was that drama mama. I was that person. They would tell me whatever was going on with them. My very first person that came to me, even before I wrote my book, and she unburdened everything. So we would talk on the phone for 1, 2, 3 hours. I would just be a hot mess after I left. I didn't protect my energy. I didn't know I could protect my energy, but I also realized I couldn't fix her. I couldn't fix her problem. And I wanted to. She was stuck in this victim mode, which I'll get onto another time. But I wanted to be that person for her, to help her. I gave her different strategies to use, different healing tools I was using at that time, but I had to realize I couldn't help her, and I can't help everyone. There has to come a point, especially if you start advocating for other people, or if you just want to help that person that's locked into that traumatic experience, that they do have to take some responsibility too. They have to begin to start taking those baby steps towards healing themselves. So I'm not going to be able to please them. I'm not going to be able to take that journey with them. For them. I could do it with them. I can't do it for them. So it's kind of like you're balancing on a balancing act. So I had to put in boundaries for myself, especially Mr. Awesome. He's like, you are a hot mess after you talk with this lady. You are crying like for days and weeks. It was very triggering for me. I was still in the baby stages of my own healing. So I had to start learning how to advocate for my own self, for my own health, and so on. And I had to realize that, you know what, I'm going to have to let her go. And I did. I couldn't accept her calls for a little while. And maybe that seems mean to somebody. I did talk to her and say, you know what, here's what you need to do. And I don't remember the exact conversation, but I left it to, hey, if you ever need to talk again, I'm here for you. And I left it kind of open. I did feel guilty. I felt guilty for not responding. I felt like I failed her in a lot of ways. We're still in contact, and she's still, this has been, oh, gosh, this has to be over 10 years. I'm not going to call her out, but it's been over 10 years and she's still in that victim mode. She's still in that same cycle, and it breaks my heart. It really does. But again, I know I can't walk that walk for everyone. there has to come a time when enough's enough, where they have to hit rock bottom, as I did, and start making their way back, climb out from that valley that they're in and climb up to the hill in the mountain. So I had to see if this person was ready to receive that. Because you might start talking to somebody, and you probably do this yourself. You talk to somebody, you give them your advice, but then they're talking to the neighbor, and then they're talking to their coworkers, and then you're hearing that same story. We're just replaying. It's a trauma dumping that I was talking about there. It's just a cycle. It really is. So we don't want to be stuck in that loop. Okay. We want to make sure that we're in a position where we ourselves aren't triggered, and so on and so on. So we have to start learning who we are in that relationship. Are we trying to undermine somebody? Are we trying to even if you are trying to be a rescuer, well, are you still in that heightened sense? Are you still looking for that chemical response in your body to where you're instigating different things to go on? There could be that too. You're not supposed to talk with your ex, but yet you're craving him. You have that order of protection going on. But when he responds, or when he reaches out or she reaches out to you, do you respond back? And then, of course, you're getting that conversation flow again. It might be negative, but you're meeting that chemical need that your brain is craving. And I know it sounds really wicked and wild, but that's what happens in our body. So we are just conditioned to be in this pattern. We're conditioned to be in that toxic relationship. We're conditioned to be in that heightened sense of adrenaline that our body's doing. So we need to start taking responsibility for ourselves and live how we need to grow. We want to grow and we want to heal. So this emotional stress, it can just keep us in a situation that's really nasty, and it's a vicious cycle. It is. Okay. So what can we do? Some stress is good. We're not going to get rid of every stress. The car is going to need brakes. Your kid's going to get a bad grade in school. There's going to be some sort of crazy going on with our government. There are just some things that may be out of our control, and some things that we just need. It's just normal everyday stress. Okay. You got a hangnail. You stubbed your toe in the morning. There's some stress. It's a little good to have stress. It'd be boring, but we don't want to have that prolonged stress. Okay. We don't want it to be where it's every waking minute we're in that heightened stress response. So let's talk a little bit about, before I dig into the other, trauma bonding. I mentioned trauma bonding because a lot of us do get hooked on that trauma bonding. It can be, so what is it? It's like a Stockholm Syndrome. And I actually did something on this not too long ago, but it can be formed very quickly. And even after the relationship has been severed, it could still go on. It really can. So there's some times that you'll feel some tenderness and some love, and then there'll be some real meanness, some real nastiness that comes out of it. So the victim has a paralyzing fear. They feel very helpless. And that abuser can isolate the victim and then start slowly convincing them that they're the only ones for them, that they're the only ones that they're going to be able to trust, the only ones that love them. And so pretty soon, contact with your family, your friends, you don't have that. And you also come to a point where you no longer trust your gut. You no longer trust yourself to make decisions at all. You might even go to that person looking to make decisions, or just let them handle all the decisions because you don't trust your instincts. And it's not you. It's something that they're doing to you, because you are amazing. Whoever you are listening out there, know that you're not crazy, that you are amazing. You are quite capable of making conscious, very good decisions. You are. This person is conditioning you to not trust yourself. So you can have what's called a honeymoon stage, which if you're in a situation that's abusive, there's no honeymoon. There's never, ever, you are always going to be living, more than likely, let's say 90% of the time, okay, 80, you're always going to be living in a stage where you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. You're stepping on eggshells. Do you know what I mean? You're waiting for something to go wrong. There'll be that time where this person is all lovey. They might be. They might buy you presents. They're saying the right words. There's never anybody that I love more than you. You're everything to me. You understand me. You get me, that sort of thing. And then it'll explode again into some rage, some bitterness, some jealousy, of course. And then we have the apologies, and then we start all over again. So this cycle just keeps continuing over and over again. We have this thing that's going on with our body, which is sucking us in. Again, it's just going to suck it back in. So we have to learn how to create skills in order for us to cope with this. So how the heck are we going to do this, right? Especially if you haven't left that situation, your needs, your identity has been lost in this relationship. And again, this could be with not only somebody that you're intimately tied to, but it could be somebody that is a parent. It could be your coworker. It could be your boss. It could be something like that. It could be your pastor, somebody at church. So this person, this abuser is they like control, and they want to be able to mold you into the person that they want, that submissive person. So they can be showering you again with gifts, maybe that hug. They promise to listen to you next time, that things will be better next time. They're going to give you a reward. They'll take you on vacation. We're going to go to Disney. We're going to go to, this, that. I'll get you that ring you've always wanted, whatever that is for you. Or I'll start going to counseling. I'm going to stop drinking. They're going to tell you that after maybe 2 or 3 sessions that they're healed or they found God. I've mentioned this before. And sometimes we believe them. I know. Hey, hello, I've been there. I know we want to believe them with our whole heart. So you're not unusual. You're not weird for still loving this person, even though they're really bad to you, or treating you bad with negative and poor behavior. It's not you, honey. Okay. It's not you. Using sex also, it can be a form of punishment, and it could be highly addicted, okay, to sex, and they don't respect no means no. And it could be that also we get part of our coping skills might become that we use sex as a coping skill in order to de-escalate a situation. Yes, I'm serious. It happens. It happens. And I know I've done it before. I've gotten on my knees and just opened up his zipper, sorry to be vulgar, just in order to de-escalate a situation. And I hated myself for doing it. I did not like the person that did those things. I didn't. I felt dirty. I felt nasty. I felt really gross. I felt very what other adjectives can I use? But you know what I mean? I just felt, and I'm still getting goosebumps just thinking about it, because those are things, I'm trying not to cry, that we do in order to de-escalate a person. And if you've never gone through that, it can be very humiliating. It really can. It can make you feel just useless, worthless. Is this all that I'm meant to do in order to de-escalate, in order to calm this person down? I'm using sex as a way to calm him down. And so I knew that we were beginning. I shouldn't knew. I just knew that there was something off. You were like, Melinda, hello. How could you not know? I grew up in a situation. If this is your first time listening to me, I grew up in that toxic relationship with a stepdad, um, child abuse survivor. So I grew up in that. So that was normal. The time that my mom slipped out and we've gotten to a relationship with my now I call him dad, Chet, that was weird because I was so used to someone harming us, someone to just being that victim, that I started to gravitate towards. I didn't like the nice guys, the nice guys that would want to date me. I didn't like them. And I was looking not for a bad boy, but you know what? I ignored those whistles, that sort of thing. And I went with the bad guy. So that can happen. I felt powerless. I felt stuck. Have you ever felt that way? I felt like, you know what? I'm going to be like this forever. I'm going to be stuck. I'm going to stay until I would bargain with myself. I'm going to stay until the kids are 18. I'm going to stay until they're in college. But you know what? The longer it started going on, the longer the relationship started, the more violent it became. And this might not be for everybody. You might be sitting there, well, Melinda, I'm not experiencing violence. Please do not compare my story to yours, because everybody is going through some different crap. We're all going through something different in some other way. You might be a man that's being victimized by your wife. You might be victimized by your mom or dad or grandma, grandpa. It could be your best friend. As I'm saying, this looks different for everybody. So don't compare my story to yours. How much do you want to take? And I had to ask myself, and I asked this of people that I talk to, how long can you envision yourself doing this relationship? Okay. How long can you picture yourself in that relationship? Another year? 3 or 4 or 5 months? What does it look like for you? 5 years? If your kids are a year old, if they're just babies, can you do this for another 18? Him or her drinking, using alcohol. What does this do to your kids? Okay, now your kids are seeing this happen. Now that alone for me was part of a splash of cold water, if you want to call it that. I didn't want them to see that this was normal because I knew in my heart this was not normal. This was not a healthy relationship. Even though I was in the middle of this, I didn't know what normal looked like. I knew it wasn't what I was in right then and there. So I knew I deserved better. I knew my children deserved better. Okay, so you might be hearing from your abuser that you're useless, that no one will want you. You've had 5 kids. Who's going to want you? Look at your body. They're going to make you feel inferior. They're going to make you feel that you are just useless. So you might have self harm. You might start using drugs or alcohol in order to cope. That can be your coping skill. Overeating, emotional eater. I was binging. I would go through these periods where I would binge, and I would, I got to my smallest was a size. Did I get down to a size 6? I think I got to a size 6 at one point in time, and I was so proud of myself. But I ate like a bird. If I ate at all, I would sometimes, if it was a response where I was mad at him, he wasn't around to see it, but then I would just like scarf things down, and then I wouldn't throw it up, but that would all I'd be eating for the rest of the day. And then I would work out for an hour, 2 or 3 hours. It was not healthy. So by any means, and your stretch of imagination, I'm not joking about, but I can envision myself doing this. It's like, you crazy woman, why were you doing that? But that was my harm. I was punishing myself. I wasn't punishing him. He wasn't around to see that. He didn't see what I was doing. So sometimes you do whatever you got to do in order to keep yourself safe. And I want to tell you right now, if you have to do that for yourself to keep yourself safe, okay. But don't rationalize that your partner isn't always or wasn't always this way, or they're only like this because they're drinking, they're only like this because we're short on money right now, or they're only like this because they're hanging out with Joe Blow or Mary Sue. You might feel that you can change this person, or that maybe if you have children, things will change. If you have a better job, if you get married, if you get that better job, you won't argue about money, whatever that is for you, you're not going to change that person. This person, like I said before, they have to have their own journey. You're not going to be able to fix them. You can't walk their healing journey for them. They might have grown up in a situation that's mirroring what you guys are in right now. So you are not going to be able to fix that person. How long do you want to stay in this relationship? So I'm asking you, how long can you see yourself taking it? Are you seeing your children exhibit problems okay, so let's say your partner just said that you're stupid. They might have called you worse, but let's say that you're stupid. Dad goes to work. So you're home alone with the kids. You're trying to correct some behavior that the kids are doing. Maybe they aren't picking up their toys. And so, you said firmly, hey, pick up those toys, get them put away now. Or, hey, let's put on a timer. Let's get those toys. However you say it. Okay. You told that to your child. Your child looks at you stone cold. You're stupid. Or maybe you're a bitch. You need to die. Whatever it is, they're going to mirror back and mimic your partner. That child can be 4 or 5 years old. That hurts. Now, I never had my kids do that to me, but I've heard stories from women that have experienced just that. That hurts. So I want you to ponder that. You're growing, and I'm not calling you out. I'm not trying to point a finger at you because I've been there. I know the fear. I know that you feel that you're at the end of the rope. You have nowhere to go. So I know this. I'm not trying to call you out or make you feel bad. So don't turn this off. Honestly, I'm not trying to make you feel bad. But do you want that for your child to do to another woman? Or do you want this for your daughter to experience this by a man? Or do you want your son to go through this by another woman? Or whatever, whatever that relationship dynamic looks like in the future for them. Do you want them to experience it? Now, I've mentioned this before. I've had contact with a few that were gay or bisexual, and they were straight. Talking with them, they went to that same sex because they thought it would be better, only because they just associated another woman as an example. These were women that contacted me that said, well, it's just another woman. They're not going to treat me that way. But they didn't realize that we are all capable of having narcissistic patterns. And so they ended up going to somebody that was just like that person they just left, that when they were in that heterosexual relationship. And so I'm not trying to make a point like, oh, well, they aren't gay or anything like that. I just want to say that sometimes we have people that crave that relationship so much, a healthy relationship so much. One, they don't know what it looks like, but two, they just get sucked into another relationship. And it happens the same way too. So you leave your partner and then you get hooked up with another man that's, again, abusive. So, I mean, it happens. I'm not trying to point out it only happens to gay people, not like that. But I'm just trying to make a point there. It could happen no matter who you are, no matter what that relationship looks like. We all are people that are in need of some sort of help and healing. So you can't help that person. They have to walk their own walk. Long story. Okay, so I'm done with that. So let's say your family and friends have already confided in you that you need to leave this person. They've said, you know what, I don't like him. And they may not come and say it in such an eloquent way. They might be saying it like, that guy's a jerk, or he's an a-hole. You need to leave him now. And so they're not coming at you. You actually might build up this protective armor. And so you might actually start turning your friends and family away. You might get a little feisty saying, oh, well, they're just, and you might defend your partner, this abusive partner. You're defending that relationship. You're feeling physically sick about leaving, or maybe you'll die if you don't leave, but you can't live without them. So you get stuck in this drama, in this trauma. Again, you might feel that you're letting that person down with this trauma bonding. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about right now. You might feel that you're letting them down. They might be telling you you're not supportive of their ideas, their thoughts, their dreams. They'll threaten to take custody of the kids. They'll sue you. You'll end up paying child support or health insurance if you don't start listening or return back to them, whatever it is. So can you heal from all of this? The drama, the trauma drama. Can you heal from trauma bonding? Yes, you can heal. Now it's hard. Okay. These steps are going to be hard. So what I'm going to say is, first of all, start journaling. Okay. Start journaling your feelings, your thoughts, and so on, and put it all on paper. That experiences, that helps so much. It's very healing. Go ahead and cry about it if you want to. Write a letter to your abuser. You don't have to send this to them, but write down all those feelings and so on. You can do a ceremony if you'd like to, depending on what your faith is. I went ahead and burned it. I sent it up to God. I said a prayer over it and asked God to heal me from that. I've done soul ties, cutting those. I've done going no contact was a big one. So this means with that other person, you're not checking those messages. Again, that drama, we're going to get sucked into that drama by listening to those messages or checking our text messages and so on, checking those emails. Now, it can be a little challenging if you're co-parenting. I'm going to encourage you to drop off in a public spot rather than at your home or his home or her home, whatever that is, and try not to engage with the abuser. Just let those exchanges go on and go. Don't respond if they're sending you voicemails or text messages. You might even want to give your phone or your account over to a friend or family, somebody you trust, and that could be just temporarily. But I'm going to tell you, it's going to be hard. You're going to be like, you're going to want to keep checking your phone. So if you've ever gone without internet for a day, you know what I mean? So you're going to want to respond. You're going to want to fire back and so on. But abusers don't listen. They don't care about your boundaries. They don't care about your opinions. They don't care. They really don't. They don't care. They care about themselves. That's it. And so they're going to keep on trying to egg you on, and they're going to keep on poking the bear and so on. So just protecting yourself to stop these messages, harassing and abusive messages. You might have to call the police also and let them know I'm getting these harassing text messages and so on. And you might have to show them. But I encourage you, if you can go no contact, it can be done. I've done it. Hello, I've done it. If you can, you're going to say to me, Melinda, it can't be done. I've done it. So girl, don't tell me you can't. I know I've done it. It can be done. It's hard. It's challenging, but you can do it. It could be that you set up a special email address for that person and you say, hey, I'll respond here. Any talk, if you have like a protective order, if you're going through a legal proceeding with your, and they have apps now, which you can actually, the court can see, and I don't remember what they're called, but they have apps now where you can do an exchange where the court can see that and so on. So it's documented, these messages back and forth. But do have them, if they have to get in touch with you, have them get in touch with a friend or a family member that you trust. And your family or friend can tell you, hey, this is an emergency. Little Johnny's in the hospital, or little Jane needs her medicine, whatever it is, they can go through them instead. Okay. You need to de-stress. Even if you only do this for a month, 2 weeks, a month, give yourself a break. I know when I was receiving messages from my ex, and sometimes I could still feel a little tension in my shoulders. Start bringing awareness to your body. What happens to your body? What are your responses, your physical responses when you hear from that person? What is that? What does that look like for you? So be careful when we have holidays and family get-togethers and so on, school gatherings. So even if your children or your family want you to make an appearance, explain the best you can and try to avoid the situation, or sit somewhere else. Try and get there at a time when this person's not. Just try to be careful and be safe. Now, if you're having a new relationship with a new person and you just left a month ago, 2 weeks ago, well, you're going to get a lot of heat. Okay. I'm not going to lie. You are going to get some nasty response. I know, been there. I was pregnant while I was still, when I was divorcing my ex. It was not even a year and I was pregnant with my now son. He's 11. So I know this can get really sticky and troublesome when that new person comes in. So I speak from experience. So let your work know, let school, medical staff know about what's going on, because your abuser might try to get to you this way. They might try to get you fired from your place of employment. They can paint you as you being the aggressor and lie about things, of course. No, they would never do that. Of course they would. They probably have the courts and the attorneys and the magistrates and judge really thinking that they're this amazing person, right? They're very good at lying. They're very cunning too. So it can be very hard to not let your heart and your mind wander back to the past, honestly. So remember that a healthy relationship doesn't make you feel small. It doesn't make you feel like you're unworthy. So jot down some reasons why you left this person or why you're planning on leaving this person. So anytime you feel like, well, maybe I should take him or her back, or maybe he or she isn't as bad as I think they are, so I'm not going to divorce them. I want you to look at that list. Pull that list out anytime you get that feeling. And I want you to remember that. I want you to remember that experience, why you need to get out. Okay. So start trusting you again. So if you feel like something's off about a person, a situation, maybe you're starting a new romance, or, you might not want to leave your children or even your fur babies. If you don't have children, don't leave them alone with this person. Please, mama, please, dad, don't. Especially if maybe you're like, well, I've been friends with them forever. I have heard of situations, and you probably have too, where they've been friends since high school, but you've never had an intimate relationship with this person. You didn't know that they're doing heroin. You didn't know that maybe they're a drinker, or maybe they are abusive, physically abusive. Maybe they like little girls, little boys. I'm not trying to be nasty, but you don't really know a person sometimes. So please do not leave your children or your fur babies alone with this person. It takes time to develop trust, but trusting those instincts that you have, especially if you didn't feel like you did there for a long time, please do the introduction slowly. It might take you several months. I encourage you 6 months, maybe even a year before you meet this person, and see how they interact with other children, other animals, other people, and so on. So rebuilding your life, it's going to take time. Okay. Again, so moving away from some of those people, maybe that drama triangle, that drama cycle that you have going on, you might have to let go of some people, even if it's just for a season. Maybe it's a month, why they get their crap figured out. Maybe it's 6 months or a year. Perhaps it's a parent. You might have to let them go. It's okay if it's mom or dad or grandma, grandpa. If they make you feel small, this is not a person for you. Okay, so take that time, give yourself that gift of healing to start building back your life again. You might need to move to a new place. You might be thinking, I don't want to move. I'm already established here. But maybe a move is good for you to start all over, to start clean and just clean slate and so on. So find a new job, maybe a new set of friends, because that old set of friends, they might be doing some negative and toxic behaviors that you don't need right now. Okay. So taking that small steps every single day. And, what did you want to be when you grew up? Do you have any favorite hobbies? Do you know what you like? Do you know what you love? What are your needs? What are your desires? What is something you've always wanted to do? So maybe you want to join a health club. Maybe you want to go back to school. Just getting out to exercise, get in nature. I'm going to encourage you to do that as part of your healing. Now that we're getting warmer weather here in the States, please get outdoors every day, at least 10 minutes. Okay. We want to send these good vibes to our body. We want to increase those endorphins, get rid of those other ones. We want our brain and the rest of us to start being healthy. And that's part of bringing peace. That's part of things I did. The things that I'm talking about here are many of the things that I did in order to heal myself. So I'm trying not only to give you some advice, but this is stuff that I've done. And I know it works. It works for me. You might have to find something that works for you. Maybe it's yoga. Maybe you sign up for a marathon. This girl, no, these thighs would be rubbing together, creating lots of smoke. I'm not running with my knees anyway. I'm not running. But for you, that might be, maybe I sign up to be a walker or a bicycle. I love bicycling. So maybe for you, it's something different. Learning how to play chess, bird watching, getting into the dirt and gardening. What does that look like for you? Do you write your own poetry? Do you write your own music? Girl, pick that up. Whatever it is for you, get into it again. And don't tell me, oh, I don't have time. I've heard this many times. I can't even begin to count how many times I hear that. We all have times. If we have time to scroll, you have time to do something for you. Read a book. Don't get off Facebook or Instagram or whatever that is for you. Read, pick up a book and read 5 minutes. I'm all about 5 minutes, 5 minutes self-care. Do something for you. Write down some affirmations. Again, get into that journal, start writing those thoughts and those feelings. Let the tears flow. If you have to scream, if you have to cry, go ahead. It's all right. Now, again, you don't have to keep whatever you're writing. You could tear it up. You can save it for your family or your children. Maybe you want documentation for court. Sometimes leaving that paper trail for court of instances where you've had some sort of situation is good. You might want to give to your attorney. I know, done that. So our body has a funny way of protecting ourselves. So when we are going through that traumatic experience, it can be very hard to remember things. Again, our body's protecting us. So it's normal and natural for that to happen. That's why I encourage you, please journal. So if you have something happening to you, he said something, he went past your place or she went past your place, I encourage you, please, to get it down on paper. And don't be so hard on yourself if you're not remembering everything, but keep a pad and paper with you at all times. Now, talk to a supportive friend. I've already mentioned this about your past, and start learning new techniques that you can use in order to help you overcome maybe those trust issues that you have. Perhaps your partner was out dating and you were married, or maybe you were dating and they were just running around town seeing whoever else they can shack up with. So you might have boundary issues, you might have trust issues. So taking good steps towards healing can help. It can help really and truly going forward, because you don't want to be in that. And I know when Mr. Awesome and I got together, there was a woman, her name was Kathleen, and she would drunk text him. She would drunk dial him. And we had issues. I ended up going, oh, it's gratitude time. I ended up going to her house to confront her. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I did later apologize, much later apologize for my behavior. It really, at the time, I wasn't in a good place and I shouldn't have done that. But I did. And I did threaten her a little bit with bodily harm. A little bit. So we do these things, and I'm just being vulnerable and being truthful and being as transparent as I can. I've done this stuff. Okay. So finding that, and I didn't trust him. So finding those, we had issues with trust and boundaries, but also learning together what a healthy relationship looked like. He knows what that looks like. For me, I didn't know. He also hadn't dealt with anybody in a trauma situation like I had. He heard of it and so on. He had friends, but he wasn't in the mix of it. So this was new territory for him too. So learning coping skills, but learning it with my partner in a healthy way, learning how to fight in a normal, healthy way without fists. without really mean words with something as well. So we don't want to develop more depression or anxiety. We probably already have some health issues, but we want to start healing our body. So find some positive and uplifting music. Now I know you might like the rock, the roll, the rap, and so on and so on, but I want to encourage you to find something that's going to lift our vibe. I know I listen to every sad song, country and rock and whatever else in between, but I felt worse afterwards. So I want you to find something that uplifts you. There are frequencies and so on as you get further and further along in your healing that you'll learn about. There's even clothing that cotton or linen is works better for you in your healing. And I know I'm not going to get into that too, but there are some frequencies throughout our world that really we can tap into to lift our spirits as well. So doing that soul work might mean digging into your Bible or your Torah or whatever else that looks like for you. Doing the affirmations and the mirror work, getting outside, feeling the sun on your face, doing some grounding, meditation. What does that look like for you? These are things that you can do. Again, finding that supportive friend. Sometimes you might have a friend that you can take along with you on that walk, or maybe they want to go to a drum circle, something like that. So finding that uplifting stuff, music, podcasts, movies, read some really good books, self-help books, or just sometimes you might just want a feeling good movie or book too. But remember to believe in yourself. You'll be surprised at how many of your health issues might lessen a lot or even go away once you start this healing process. And also, so what is that healing relationship look like? What does that look like? So it could be that I understand, I hear you, I love you. Let's talk. There's no strings attached. They're going to hold space for you, and they might not talk, and that's okay. You want someone that's not going to talk. They might give you some criticism, but it's coming from a loving place. It's not coming at a place of making you feel unworthy or small. There's no hidden agenda. They respect you. They're respecting those boundaries. There's mutual trust, and this is giving you a good time to grow, heal, and also evolve. So, wow, we covered a lot. I hope you got it all. So you can break that trauma drama. It's going to take some work to do, but I encourage you to do it. And, if not for yourself, for just your health. So I know that is for yourself, but really and truly for your health, you really need to tap into that, figure out where this comes from. What are some reasons that you can joyfully uplift yourself to heal? What is that look like for you? And what does it, doing ultimately what you can do, what's best for you, knowing that, okay, you don't need to be a rescuer for everybody. Maybe you just need to strengthen your own self and responsibility to take care of what you can control and not just take control of everybody else's life too. So this is a lot. I know. We don't want to drain our energy. We want to zip up that energy. Remember, zip it up like you're zipping up a coat, really and truly. So if you're going into a crowded room or so on, or you're going into a situation that's crowded, pretend you're wearing a zip up coat and zip up your energy. Zip it up. So just love yourself. Show up in an authentic way with people that you trust, of course, too. Well, even with people you don't trust, but just show up. Love yourself, believe in yourself. You have a future that can be positive. I know, Ken. I know, I'm rambling. I'm going to let y'all go. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions, any concerns, any opinions about anything I said, don't hesitate to message me privately. I love you. I hear you. I see you. I hope to see you again soon. Please stay safe. It's Melinda. I'm going to be signing off. Talk to you soon.